Hey everybody, welcome to my little mini garden. I'm getting ready to harvest some stevia so I can dry the leaves and play and experiment with this natural sweetener a little bit. I'm just learning and I thought you might like to learn along with me. This is my stevia plant. He's doing really well back here. He's in a raised bed planter. I'm doing most of my gardens in raised beds just because of the soil here in Arizona. And the small garden that I have, the small place that I have to garden in here in my backyard. The stevia plant is in a raised bed along with a tomato plant and a basil plant, which is struggling at the moment just a little bit. But anyway, I think this is big enough that I can cut it back right now and dry some of the leaves. As you can see, I've cut a substantial amount from this plant. I cut probably a good third to a half of it, but that's okay because it'll grow back. It'll get a little bit bushier now too, and I just want to make sure that I'm drying these leaves as the plant grows. You don't want to let it get so big that it starts to flower, because that's when the leaves start to get bitter, and you want sweet tasting leaves because obviously you're using it as a sweet. Okay, so we're back in the kitchen with our stevia cuttings, and I'm going to wash them really well. I'm sure you can imagine how many critters are in my garden. You know, it's interesting to see what these critters eat. They eat some vegetables, but pretty much they leave herbs like this alone, like my basil and my mint they don't touch. And I read that this was an herb, so still, you can't be too careful. It's going to rinse this really well. And then I'm going to separate it from its stems, because the post that I pinned to the Heart for Christmas Pinterest board said that the stems are not as nearly as sweet as the leaves. And so you can keep the stems, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to keep the leaves. Now I'm going to try, I'm going to dry them. They're all washed. But first I'm gonna taste one. I love to take these little leaves off in the garden when I'm out there and just can chew on one. I heard that chewing on one of these can suppress your sweet tooth for several hours at a time, and I don't doubt it. Very sweet. I mean, you can taste that it's a plant. So it'll be interesting to see once you dry this and use it like according to recipe, what it tastes like, if you can still taste that it's plant-based. Okay, so everything's washed, and I'm just going to pat it dry a little bit, and I'm going to remove the leaves and put them over here on this drying plate. If you have a food dehydrator, you can use that too, but I think I'm just going to let these dry naturally. It did pretty well the last time I did it. Really only took a couple of days, and I got the same effect. So this will just take a minute. Or two. I'm pretty excited. You know, my very first try with stevia didn't end well. The plant didn't make it, and it was out in a much larger garden plot, and I grew it right in the soil, right in the ground. And this one's growing in a raised bed planter. This particular plant's in a raised bed planter, and I did read in, again, that article that I pinned on our Pinterest page, that they like raised bed gardening a little bit better. So you might even be able to grow this inside depending on how much light you have. That little corner doesn't get quite as much light as other places in my yard, but obviously this little plant just loves it there. So and I also read where, this is pretty cool, these plants will produce for like 3 to 4 years. And so this is my first season with this plant, but I'm excited about the possibilities. because I think dried stevia leaves might be, depending on how you use them, might be some good and unique Christmas gifts that you can give the cooks in your life, either as just as dried stevia leaves, because that's the dried leaves last a lot longer than it does if you make any of the extracts, whether you whether you use alcohol or water based. Those seem to only last, according to the article, for about a week to 2 to 3 weeks, but dried stevia leaves can keep for a much longer period of time. Now, as you can see, as these leaves start drying, oh, my guard dog says that we've got a threat, so I'm gonna let him, he's gonna go check that out. But as you can see, as these leaves start to dry, they will reduce, and I can arrange them a little bit better on the plate until they're super dry. And I just wait until they're crunchy, a little bit crunchy, and then I know that they're dry enough. And I crushed up my very first batch, but I think this batch I'm just going to find a glass jar with a good seal on it, then I can just store them in this glass jar, because then you can save them and decide what you want to do with them for later, whether you want to grind them, whether you want to make extract, how you want to use them. And don't worry, every time I try something, I'll take you along with me, I promise. So I wanted to show you what my first batch looked like when I got it all finished. I actually crunched this up. I put the dried leaves into a little baggie, and then I used a rolling pin to crunch them up to this texture. And I don't know how I'm going to use this. I'm going to search for some ways to use it, and I'm going to experiment a little bit. I'll let you know how things work out. But I think I'm going to put them in this little container I got. I don't know how I came by these little containers, but I'm sure you can probably find them at a Michael's or a Joann Fabrics or a Hobby Lobby. But it's cool because it's got a shaker top. And I think I might store some crunched up like this, and then the rest, like that batch that I just showed you, I'm going to dry and preserve full leaf.